As farmers and composters, it's easy to get in the pattern of only thinking about our day-to-day fires that need to be addressed. Weeds, odors, staffing, where to move that next batch. We forget the bigger picture. Today's guest, Pierce Lewis from Dirt Hugger, reminds us to keep perspective and take time to plan. It saves so much effort in the long run. In this episode, Pierce talks about the newest innovations at Dirt Hugger, the journey from being privately owned to selling to a big corporation and then buying back, and how he and his business partner Tyler strategize. Welcome to The Composter, a podcast for compost lovers. I'm your host and fellow composter, Jane Murner. Join me in practical conversation between industry professionals and farmers with a passion for producing quality compost. We're going to dig deep into the science, technology, and art of compost production so that we as composters can help enliven the world's soils. This episode of The Composter is brought to you by Viably. As the master distributor of Komptech products in North America, Viably helps their customers to uncover the most forward-thinking solutions in the waste and recycling industry, including the proven 4-step Komptech compost process of shred, turn, screen, and separate, which produces healthy, contaminant-free compost while optimizing commercial production efficiency. Viably is also the distributor of the Turbo Separator food waste depackaging system and the Harp Renewables biodigester. Both of these revolutionary machines can help composters incorporate food scraps into their compost process, creating a more nutritious end product and the opportunity for an enhanced bottom line. You can learn more about Viably and their portfolio of compost solutions at thinkviably.com. While there, request a complimentary consultative meeting to discover how Viably can help your compost operation deliver what is possible. When it comes to buying a truck, you don't look for parts and try to build it yourself. You want something ready to ride. So why settle for parts when it comes to your farm management? In a world filled with parts vendors, Farmhand is the only all-in-one virtual assistant built by and for farmers. With one single platform, Farmhand enables you to offload your administrative tasks, send and manage communications, and sell more to your customers. The best part? Farmhand's ready-to-ride platform comes with zero startup costs or long-term commitments. Ready to earn more and work less? Take Farmhand's ready-to-ride solutions for a spin. Learn more and book a free test drive at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. Enjoy the show. Well, Pierce, welcome to The Composter. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me back.
I'm so psyched. So 2 years ago when we spoke, we really delved into the nuts and bolts of your operation. So I really recommend listeners listening to that. There was so much nitty-gritty you talked about. Because you talked so much about that in season 1, could you just give us a little brief overview of Dirt Hugger, just like where you're located, and if anything has really changed in regards to your processing since 2022?
Yeah, that's great. So we're located in the Pacific Northwest. We're right on the Oregon-Washington border. We are a regional composting facility. We service the Columbia River Gorge area, as well as we process 100% of City of Vancouver's material and about a third of Portland, Oregon's material. This year, we'll compost about 60,000 tons and sell 40,000 yards of compost, of which we ran out all spring, which is both a good and terrible problem to have.
Is that 60,000 tons of food scraps or 60,000 tons total with the carbon materials as well?
That's total.
Total, okay.
Yeah. About 80% of what we process is residential curbside yard debris with food waste in it.
Okay.
And then the remaining 10%, 10% fruit that comes from packing houses, pears, cherries, apples, and another 10% is kind of some random stuff. And we take a lot of liquids, brewery waste, fats, oils, and greases, fruit processing liquids. So that's a big part of our business.
And has anything shifted in your processing since 2022? You had a pretty unique system.
We do. And yes, lots has changed since then. So a couple things that we've updated. One, We've gotten even more serious about contamination. So we have 5 touch points for contamination removal at our site. 3 are on the front end and 2 are on the back end. So on the front end, as soon as a load comes out, we do a ground pick with 1 to 2 people. Then we pre-process through a screener and a sorting line where we have 2 to 3 people on that sort line. Then we do a polish pick after that on the ground before it goes through a shredder. And then so that's 3 on the front end. Then when it goes through our entire process, we screen it once with a wind sifter. And then we rescreen it again with a second screener and a second wind sifter and another sorting line on the back of that. So a hand sort at the end before odors come back. So,
wow, is that because things are coming in so much more contaminated?
I'd say equal level of contamination. It's just we have a strong desire to up our game as much as possible. That's one. Number 2 is we kind of during that entire transition, we had applied for a grant from Portland Metro. We received it shortly after selling to Atlas. Yeah, it was a $500,000 matching grant, and it was to increase our capacity. And the way we're able to do that is right now we run a phase 1 as an aerated, turned aerated static pile system. And then our phase 2 was unaerated. And so what we've done, and we're halfway through that project, is we're adding aeration to our cure. So we will have air all through phase 1, all through phase 2. And then tied to that, so just, more time on air. Tied to that, we now have pavement from end to end of our processing system. So a really nice working surface. And then the third element tied to that was electrification of our stationary plant. So we're adding 3 new 3-phase power drops. We just put our first one in, and we just very excitedly plugged in our first piece of stationary equipment. So that's one of our wind sifters is now running on shore power. And we hope over time, as each piece of equipment dies or ages out, that we'll repurchase it with an electric screener or shredder. It brings so much joy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we have such a power crunch here. Like we can't run our pond pump at the same time as our generator for our bagger, that kind of thing. So I have one of those hybrid screeners that I could run, choose either diesel or electric, but I don't have enough power to run it electric, which would be awesome. That's so great. Congrats. That's like you're really honing in those systems. I just wanted to back up for people that don't know what a wind sifter is. I'll explain what the wind sifters that I've seen. They're usually on a screener, and they're above. It's like almost like a big vacuum fan, and it sucks the plastic out of these finished compost generally.
Yeah, and ours are standalone pieces of equipment. So the screener will plug into a second piece. The ones we run both have dual vacuum heads as well as metals removal and density separators. So they're pulling out metal, rock, and thin film plastic as a standalone second unit to the screeners.
What's the company that you have that's from?
We have one from Ecoverse and one from Komptech.
Last we had spoken, Dirt Hugger had just been acquired by Atlas Organics, just like 3 months before. And you generously came on and spoke about the transition. And now I see that you've bought the company back. You're still with your partner? You guys have bought it back from Atlas?
Yes. Yep. Tyler Miller.
Yeah, Tyler. Yeah. Just wanted to know, what transpired and what do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we feel really fortunate. It was a pretty incredible experience. It's pretty unique. When we called our attorney who kind of walked us through the sale process and said that we were, offered an opportunity to buy the business back, he said, we call him the voice of God because he's kind of the most reasonable person we've ever met. He said, yeah, I've done 8 of these buybacks. Quite typically it'll work out well for you. And it's usually a good situation. So let's do it. And so, we feel fortunate that we had both the opportunity to sell, work for a larger organization, learn from them, and then basically, in buying it back, be able to apply a lot of the learning to what we're doing now. We had originally said to Atlas, and we were pretty aligned with Joseph and Gary, who co-founded that. About 6 months in, they had left Atlas, and the private equity parent, Generate Upcycle, began to take over management. And we still have a really great relationship with them. In fact, the person that runs it is a mentor to me, and we meet, once a month. His name is Bill Caesar. I have a lot of respect for him and how he runs a business. So he had approached us at about a year after our original sale and asked if we were interested in buying it back. I think at that stage, Dirt Hugger didn't necessarily fit with the strategy that they had. We're kind of out here in the Pacific Northwest on our own. There weren't a lot of other facilities nearby that we could share equipment with or share management with. And so I think it just didn't fit with their go forward strategy. So we negotiated the buyback. And so we were with Atlas for 14 months and then bought it back September of last year. So we just passed our 1 year mark of buying the business back.
And the whole time you had been involved, you and Tyler were still really involved. I remember you were planning to stay for a while. So you just...
So we were the 13th compost facility they acquired. Tyler and I were working on, helping design and build infrastructure at those 13 sites. So we got the opportunity to travel around the country and check them all out and get to learn more about composting in other areas. And so we were, 100% involved with Atlas and Upcycle during our time there.
It feels like you learned so much, and it's only made Dirt Hugger better. So last time you were on, you also mentioned this book, Traction, as a tool that you use to help plan your business strategies, which isn't generally how most of us that go from farming into composting, it's not usually our background, is that where... That was really great that you mentioned that, and I picked up the book and ended up reading it. And so did it help to be clear with your goals and steps, and what are your future goals for Dirt Hugger now? And are they still on par with where they were when you were on your traction plan, back 2 years ago?
Traction is actually even more central to our business than it was before. When we came back, in the previous iteration of Dirt Hugger, I call it, that was Dirt Hugger 2.0. This is Dirt Hugger V3. I had read the book and implemented myself. This time we hired a professional EOS implementer to help us do, pure traction. So we're really even deeper into it now. But as you know, a central part of that is setting a 10-year target and a 3-year goal and a 1-year goal. And so our 3-year is very different than it was before we sold. Before we sold, we wanted to have, multiple facilities. I think our 10-year target was like 10 sites. And our 3-year was probably like 3 or 5 sites. And that's completely changed. I think we've been part of a group where we had, 13 sites across the country and got to experience that. And this really has a lot, I think, to do with, Tyler and I and our team is now we're back to, we'd really rather focus here in the Northwest and focus on making this site that we have the best that it can possibly be versus perhaps scaling out. So our 3-year goal is actually not to grow the top line revenue at all. It's to keep it consistent with what we did this year, but it's to grow our bottom line, our EBITDA. And really a lot of that is through some of the stuff we just talked about. So part of our 3-year goal is all stationary plants are electric powered. We're working on implementing the 5 S's of lean. So like lean manufacturing and applying it here. So we think, the pavement was the first step of that, if we have a nice working surface, it's more efficient for the loaders. One of our key processes moving from phase 1 to phase 2 is taking the loader operators 50% the amount of time. And there's a huge financial savings there, as well as, fuel and the wear and tear on their backs and their equipment. So we're looking at getting more efficient and getting better versus growing the top line of the business. And I think, like this year, we ran out of compost, for about an 8-week period. So we will have to grow our feedstock just to support the market, but we don't have a stated, we aren't trying to take every ton we can get our hands on. We'd rather just do really well and get efficient and hone in these processes. So that's kind of where we're headed. And our team is pretty fired up about that at this stage. And I think opportunities will come out of that. If a second site opportunity presents itself and it feels like a good fit, we'll go for that. But that's not our focus anymore.
This is really cool because the same thing transpired for our team going through this process. A year ago, we had a 1-year plan to start looking for a second site after really honing in our systems here. So it's like super aligned with what you got going on. But we found the site so quickly, which was, we had looked in Rhode Island for a long time. And then once we kind of Rhode Island is super small, by the way. It's like you can drive the whole thing in 1 hour. And once we expanded our look into Connecticut, so this new site is 40 minutes away. Then we found a spot really, really quickly with the help of one of my farm managers was like, look out here. Why don't we just expand a little bit more in our view? And I found it right away. So we're like a year ahead of where we're at, which I was like, from our planned target goals from traction. But pretty cool because the permitting process takes so long that we still have time to continue honing in our processes here at the farm so we can replicate them really well over there. And like you're saying, we originally thought we'd have like multiple sites, like a 10-year plan of having 4 sites. But this new piece of property is so much bigger than we were first anticipating that we're like, you know what? I think this is good for 10 years. We're going from our 27-acre farm with just really 3 acres of it in compost production to this new one that's 241 acres. So we have a lot of room to grow for a long time.
That is massive. Yeah.
So I love that you can have these plans, our 10-year target, and then you just have to work with what comes your way too and be open to it. And so, but super helpful to keep on it and keep meeting about it, all the time, quarterly. How are we doing with our targets there? So that was really great to bring to this podcast. I hadn't been thinking we would talk about business at all. And you really highlighted that the last time. Join me and composters from around the country at Compost 2025 in Phoenix, Arizona, January 27th to the 30th, where industry leaders gather to revolutionize composting. Don't miss keynote speaker Stephanie Katsaros, president of Brightbeat, a Chicago-based organization sharing insights on advancing environmental stewardship and social change. Network with professionals, attend workshops, and explore the latest innovations in composting. Register now at compostconference.com and use coupon code NOTILL for 10% off. See you there. Oh yeah, it's seed browsing season, and High Mowing Organic Seeds is releasing 66 new seed varieties for 2025 on November 1st. These beautiful and productive vegetable, flower, and herb varieties are 100% organic and non-GMO and trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. Whether you're trying to bring your best to your CSA, wholesale customers, or to the farmer's market, High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use NOTILL25, all caps, for 10% off your order of $100 or more. And now back to the show. So you mentioned lean, which I'm a huge fan of, like leaning all processes. And for listeners that aren't aware of lean, it's a style. You can help me with this, Pierce, because I'm not like super versed in it, but didn't it come out of Japan on like some kind of assembly line sort of situation of thinking about how to really get processes honed in? And my experience with it is really fun. I was in a group with 5 farmers, and we would visit each other's farms, and we'd choose one process. Like it was one farmer was a flower farmer, and we visited when she would do her setup before picking. And we would all put our heads together and look at the process. We'd time how she did it normally, and then we'd all talk about it and really put our input in, and then try to get it down to be quicker and more like more streamlined, so you're holding your body better and, just all around better. And then we'd by the end of the day, we'd have it down to like 30 seconds instead of 5 minutes. It was really fun. And then we visited each farm, so everybody got a chance to improve a process on their farm and then just start thinking in that way. So has that been your experience with lean? Because you just mentioned it briefly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it came from Toyota production of vehicles, I think back in the 80s, and it's become kind of the standard for manufacturing, and composting is manufacturing. It's a replicable process. So exactly that. And it's getting people who are doing the work to make these suggestions and improvements. And, if it's 1% a day, that adds up on aggregate. And so it's pushing decision and thinking to the front line and iterating on process and just thinking about how we can do this best. And it's really powerful. It's super powerful. And for the people who are out at our site making compost every day, they're doing a lot of the same actions over and over and over. So if we can shorten their travel time in a loader or make, a certain move more efficient, that really adds up. And it's really rewarding and fun when people suggest ideas and we implement it and it has, an impact. So it's great. The most recent one I did is I bought, since we pave now, I just bought a professional parking lot striper. And the guys think I'm crazy, but I've been out there painting parking stripes for every piece of equipment and saying, here's where each loader parks, here's which the street sweeper parks. And just one of those elements it's called set of the 5S, and it's everything has a place and where it goes. And just setting that up kind of sets a standard of, cleanliness and orderliness and these other things that translate into product quality in the end, because you're just managing things better and it's easier and safer.
Our barn is set up like that, and it's something we're constantly revisiting because there's so many people involved, and sometimes that thing is not in the square it's supposed to be in, but it is so much improved from how it had been. And being able to find the tool that you need when you need it is like so incredibly satisfying.
Time saver. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And you can tell when it's missing. It's great.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of farmers listening, but there is a lean book for farmers that's super helpful too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Great. So you've had a chance to really see the industry, small scale, big scale, conglomerate, all sorts of things. As an industry as a whole, what do you think are the biggest challenges that we are facing? And also, kind of flip side, what are our biggest opportunities as an industry?
I think there's tremendous tailwind for the industry right now. My tagline is "This is our decade." I do think, this decade there will be a lot of composting infrastructure and capacity built. I think the challenges, to your point earlier, permitting is a challenge, and I think it's something that the regulatory industry is learning and evolving at the same time that we are. And I think just bridging that gap and working together with regulators and building shared understanding and a shared database. I know, on the West Coast, we deal a lot with air emissions and air modeling, and states are investing. Washington State right now is investing a lot in a $2 million study to look at air emissions. So I think, streamlining permitting process and shared understanding is one barrier that I'm optimistic and I think we're making strides on. I think number two is capital. And we're also seeing a move there. This is a very capital intensive industry. To put aeration infrastructure in the ground, to put electric in the ground, much less all the equipment that we're buying, front loaders, screeners, shredders, all that stuff is very expensive. And affording it is a challenge. And so we're seeing grant monies. The grant we got for this site, I know that EPA just allocated a very large grant to the state of Oregon to build capacity. So I do think we need grant and assistance to build this infrastructure. And I truly think it is, baseline utility infrastructure. It's mostly run by private companies, but I'd put it right up there with water and sewer or power. This is responsible waste management. And it's going to be essential to every community to have composting accessible and capacity nearby. And so I think as, the nation and the government treats it as infrastructure and invests in it as such, I think that's going to really help get this going, because, funding it privately, as you know yourself, is a real challenge. And, we're excited because we just paved our site end to end, but that's 10 years after we broke ground here. So it's taken us 10 years to kind of scrape the money together and make it work versus, it would have been nice 10 years ago to do it on day one.
You have to be so bold to do this, knowing it's going to be so expensive and that it's going to take you 10 years to pave a site and that kind of thing. It's going to take it's really courageous. You just have to be, fearless. I was in a situation recently where to close on the land, the bank was requiring that I had a compost permit, and the state of Connecticut was requiring that I that I own the land before I could get the permit. And I was so you're kind of just stuck in a loop. And it would be easy to, I'm sure many projects have gotten squashed that could have been really great by those kind of situations. So anyway, it worked out. I had to get like a letter of support from the state of Connecticut in order to close with the bank and with all these caveats and a lot of extra payments until I have the permit, which is going to take me over a year. So it takes boldness. This is definitely our challenges in this industry.
Yeah, but both those things you said, right? Permitting timeline and the effort, and then, access to capital. I mean, those are the hurdles that we need to get over.
I had that study tour in Austria last year, which is the country of Austria has all these decentralized compost operations with support from the government in some ways, but not like total control. And I'm a little concerned about like in 10 years, we could have a bunch of centralized compost operations if the way some of the grants are written right now through EPA and USDA, it does seem to be favoring municipalities or larger centralized sites. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. Is there's something lost when it's not like these like Dirt Hugger and Earth Care Farm and these little ones that are around with the heart and the soul and the real care. So that's something I want to keep my eye on and see how we can support that as it becomes more of something that's going to become obvious for society that these are needed. I don't know if you have anything to weigh in on that. Decentralized.
No, I agree. I do think there's like a natural, I think decentralized is a stronger system. I think it's more robust, more resilient. I do think there's like sort of a natural size to a site that beyond which you get negative economies of scale and probably like even you're saying negative sort of interest of scale. In my head, it's somewhere around that like 60, 75,000 tons. And then beyond that, you're getting into custom equipment and really big stuff and weird stuff. And it just gets, extra expensive. I agree. I think more facilities, smaller facilities, I think again, it comes back to permitting and locating and cost of equipment. But, I just toured Napa, recycling facility, and that's like a PPP where the government, I think, owns the facility, but they run it. And it's a nice size site. They do a really good job. So I think, more like that, that's a nice model. But keeping them at a natural size, not an unnatural size where you get these just mega sites at 200,000 tons or 400,000 tons. And then they're huge.
Yeah. And there's so much material out there just waiting for us to make good compost out of it. So it's an exciting time.
Totally.
I saw that you took your team, you went together, closed for the afternoon and went kayaking.
Rafting. Yeah, we go rafting every year. Yeah.
I love that so much that like, it's making me think I want to like take an afternoon, take my crew and do something really fun because we have some afternoon things once in a while, like an hour after work. But I feel like that's hugely team building, morale building. And you get these awesome ideas out of those situations that like people feel more free to share those lean ideas when you are doing something totally different and fun.
100%. And putting people out of their comfort zone. I mean, a lot of people have some fear and anxiety around whitewater. And so that's when you kind of get people heightened and then out of the environment. It's great. There's a lot of cross-pollination and different people talking that normally don't. So we love it. It's super fun. The biggest challenge, as you know, in composting is like, it's really hard to pick a day. Since we are, processors of waste material, that stuff never stops or slows down. So, there's never a good day to say, hey, we're closing down, but we just kind of had to pick it and say, this is more important than, making money or whatever.
Is there anything else that you want to share or let our listeners know? Any words of encouragement?
I think, for us coming back to the business, so we had this fresh perspective and fresh eyes, and it was kind of cool. I felt like, not since grade school or college do you get that opportunity where you have like the summer off and you get to think about, how you were doing things and then how you want to enter this new year. And I think that's one thing that's sort of lost in the working world. It's just sort of this continuous like go, go, go. And so we feel fortunate to come back with fresh eyes and kind of fresh energy and experience. I think one of the things that was bizarre is this time around, we were able to de-risk ourselves personally. So we had a little bit more risk appetite. We felt like we could kind of do things that we were scared to do before because we had so much debt and we had, these loans and we just really had to service them. So we pushed back extra hard on our contaminating feedstock customers. So we basically doubled their rates and said, we're really serious this time. And I think some of the stuff about product quality, like the 5 touch points, like most rational businesses would say that's crazy to spend that much money and resource. 17% of our cost is on contamination removal. But when we came back, we're like, you know what? If we're going to do this, like, we just want to make the best product we can. Like, I see our customers in the grocery, I see them at the store, and I want them to, not scream at me and throw a head of lettuce. I want them to high five and say, hey, I bought your compost and it's awesome. And so, we focused a lot on that coming back, and not intentionally, but like our financials have been better than ever. This is, to be running out of compost that much, like, just, I'd say focusing on the product, focusing on like the true customer, which to me is, the one that's buying it and putting it in their soil. I think the rest follows when we put our focus there versus, pure diversion or, how many tons can I take? I think if we build a good compost product and a good compost market, it pulls the rest of the stuff through the system and pulls infrastructure growth and the rest of the thing. And I think it's easy in this industry to get excited about tip fees or, diversion or other stuff. But I think for long-term sustainability of this industry, if we all focus on the product, I think the rest will fall into place. And that's kind of been our takeaway coming back. We didn't really have, huge aspirations financially or otherwise on this. We just kind of wanted to make great product and have an awesome site. And it's been fun leaning into that and seeing kind of financial results and other things follow.
I'm 100% in the same boat of the make the product the best and the rest falls into place. How do we keep that, like that fresh coming back from summer feel to our businesses where you're like, I remember that feeling of like, who do I want to be this year? What am I going to wear that first day of school? And how do I be more me in this, environment? And I think we need to hold on to that and like lean into that. Like maybe this is our thing where maybe the anniversary of when you signed that buyback is the time when we, you get that new school outfit and walk in with your new attitude. I want to do that now. Yeah.
The thing we did, this is not that. I think an annual refresh is good and trying to create that space is awesome. We implemented this year a sabbatical, so a paid month every 7 years, and people get their birthdays off as a holiday. So those are like some small wins, but yeah, to your point, like the new school outfit, I think if there's a way to build that into our work lives, like no matter what any of us do, I think it's healthy.
Pierce, I appreciate you so much being on. It's a pleasure to talk to you twice on the show. Amazing. Not many people have been on twice and such valuable insights. So thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you. And congratulations on your land and compost permits. And that's super exciting.
Yeah. Are you going to be at the U.S. Compost Conference this winter in Arizona?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. We'll have to cheers there because we both have things to celebrate. So very cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Pierce. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Dan.
Thank you, Pierce, for that great reminder to take time to work on the business, not only in the business. I want to see the compost industry thrive. So let's all take some time to do this. Follow Dirt Hugger on Instagram at DirtHuggerCompost or at DirtHugger.com. As always, thank you to No-Till Growers for making this possible. All our sponsors, the awesome music of Soulshot, Mother Earth, Jah, Buddha, God, and all that allows for this fun career. And especially you, our compost-loving listeners.